Hello there, it's Gabby here for you, and I hope this finds you well. This week, I'm going to be talking about a subject that is really important for a lot of people that I speak to, and that is working through and after a cancer diagnosis. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience, what working through my treatment, and what my return to work after cancer looked like for me, and also share some experiences of people that I've been talking to as well. And then I'm going to leave you with the most important thing to consider when you're thinking about returning to work or you're thinking about working through your cancer treatment. What is the most important thing that can either help you or hinder you enjoy and be happy with your return to work? Okay, so I'm going back to the time of my cancer diagnosis, which is 16 years ago now, and I'll just tell you a little bit about how it worked for me. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that this applies to everybody, but I think it does help for me to share my experience. I worked through my cancer treatment for a variety of reasons. Financially, I needed to, but also working through my cancer treatment when I was diagnosed back in January 2008, it really helped me in so many ways. And how did it help me? Well, first of all, when you're going through cancer treatment, and don't want to state the obvious, it takes over your life. There are hospital appointments. I was started on chemotherapy straight away. So I was going to the doctor, I was going to my GP, I was going to nurse appointments, I was going for blood tests, I was going for scans, x-rays, all sorts of things. And it almost became like a full-time job, this cancer treatment business, and it was all encompassing. And that's just the practical side of things, never mind the emotional, the fear. There's so much new information, so much new terminology that I had to learn very quickly, all about my cancer treatment, the type of cancer that I had, and how I was going to process this, and the things I had to go through. So I had this, and every time I went for an appointment, it felt like somebody gave me a leaflet and said, here's a leaflet about whatever, this thing that you're having now today, the chemotherapy. Here's a leaflet about the scan that you're having. Here's a leaflet about radiotherapy and what that means. So I had this massive big bag full of all these leaflets, and sometimes it felt that they were all over my house, all over the house, everything about cancer, and that's all we were thinking about and talking about. But some days I like to stuff all those leaflets back in that bag and put it in a cupboard and not touch it and not talk about it. And it's hard not to think about it when you're going through something like that, but I tried really hard. And at the time, I was a contractor. I wasn't even a permanent employee, and my employers were very accommodating. When I told my boss that I had cancer and I needed some time out for cancer treatment, he was like, do you want to work? I was like, absolutely, I do. I need this job for so many reasons. And he was like, okay, great. Back in the day, it wasn't common for people to have a laptop and work from home, but he gave me a laptop. He told me to come in when I wanted to come in and go home when I wanted to go home. And so the way it worked for me when I was going through my chemotherapy, which was always on a Wednesday, I had 6 sessions on every 3 weeks on a Wednesday. I'd have my chemotherapy, obviously, and come home, just be absolutely fit for nothing, really tired, crawl into bed and spend 2 or 3 days in bed watching box sets of all sorts of watching films, not really leaving the bedroom very much. But by, day 3 or 4, I was starting to come around a bit and feel a bit more human. And the following week, I would go into work, not full time, but I would go into work, and I enjoyed that as well. What I enjoyed was not being a cancer patient for the day. Back in the day, 16 years ago, I used to wear a suit for work, as many managers did. I put my suit on, put a little bit of makeup on. I was wearing a headscarf or a wig, but when I lost all my hair with the chemotherapy, but it made me feel not like a victim. It made me feel not like a patient. And yeah, I still felt pretty groggy and pretty rough, but it wasn't all about the cancer. And so doing the job that I was doing, I was working on a big project for this company, and going to work, thinking about the project, thinking about the things that I needed to do, thinking about meeting with other people in the organization and talking about something that wasn't all about cancer. It really helped me to get me out of myself and just to think about something else. And I loved that. I really enjoyed it. And I was lucky that my boss was accommodating. I could pick my own hours. I wasn't stressed at all. I was really doing something that I was enjoying, and I felt like I was being useful. And that was really, really good. So the other thing I wanted to talk about, for a lot of people that I work with, a lot of people that I'm coaching, returning to work after their cancer treatment finishes, is a big issue for a lot of people. And there's so many practical things to think about. Some of the people that I work with aren't physically able to work through their treatment. I was very lucky that I worked in an office. It wasn't a physical job. I was just sat down at a laptop or having meetings with people. Some people do really, physically demanding jobs and they just can't work through their treatment. Or I know quite a few people that have worked in schools or in hospitals or environments that, you can't work in those environments when you're going through chemotherapy and you're exposed to viruses when your immune system is so low, as it will be if you're going through chemotherapy. And I say after treatment because my treatment finished after 6 or 7 months. Apart from my surgeries, my chemotherapy and my radiotherapy finished after about 7 months. So that was the end of the medical side for me, apart from the operations that I had to go back for. But I know for some people that are hormone receptive, they may be on medication for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years. So when does that, start and finish? It's so different for so many people. You're an individual, and your individual circumstances are something you've got to think about and talk about and plan for. But it might help you to know, if you're in the UK, you are covered by the Equality Act of 2010. And some people are not aware of this. And even more importantly, some employees are not aware of this. And what that act says, it's the law that gives you protection. You are covered from the minute that you are diagnosed for the rest of your life. You are covered by the Equality Act of 2010 that says you are not allowed to be discriminated against in your workplace. You cannot be treated any less favourably because you've had this diagnosis or because you've had time out for treatment. That is the law. Now, some employers are better than others at interpreting the law and putting that into practice, but you do have that protection. And some people are not aware of that, and it helps some people to know that. They, oh, okay, my boss, my employers have to look after me. They've got a duty of care to follow the law and to look after me. And there was some studies that I referred to before. I found these a couple of years ago, and that said that 45% of people who returned to work after cancer treatment, 45% felt anxious and experienced major anxiety about the fact that they were going back to work, and they were very unsure about how that was going to work. And 27% of people in a survey said they received absolutely no support in that return to work. And I find that really heartbreaking, and it's so sad. Again, some employers are better than others, but that's part of the work that I do as well. I do work with people that are returning to work to come up with their own plan. Got to be in conjunction with their employers, obviously, but at least if they've got a plan, they know what they're about. There is a saying for many people, the cancer diagnosis can be a time of reflection, thinking about the way that you're living, and no judgment and no making yourself wrong or blaming yourself, but just thinking about, like I did, oh, okay, so I'm a busy woman and I'm so used to doing everything, and the cooking and the cleaning and running around after the family and volunteering for a lot of things at work. Is that really the way that I want to be continuing after my cancer diagnosis? And for me, it was a time of making some different choices. And there's a saying, you can do anything. I really believe that most people can do anything you want to, but you can't do everything. And for many years, many women I know run about thinking they are superwoman and they can volunteer for everything, and they'll take more and more and more on their shoulders until something happens. And for many people, it's a cancer diagnosis that can stop them in their tracks and think, okay, maybe I need to make some changes. And again, this is not about blame. This is not about blaming yourself, but it's about thinking, I've got some choices here. I do have some choices. And as I said at the beginning, there's one thing that can make or break a successful return to work, the most important thing, and that is your line manager and the relationship that you've got with your line manager. As I said at the beginning, my line manager was so supportive, said all the right things to me when I didn't really even know what I was asking him for. He said, come in when you want to come in, go home when you want to go home, tell me how you're feeling. If you're not up to it, that's fine. But that relationship, we had an open and honest conversation, and I was very lucky with that. But not everybody's got that. But your manager has got a greater impact on your mental health than even your doctor has, even maybe your husband has, even your close friends and family. If you're working full time, that relationship is key to your happiness and to your health, particularly your mental health. And I know, I've had a lot of jobs over the years. I used to be a contractor and I've worked in a lot of different organizations. And I've been on the receiving end of bullying at work. I've seen some really good behaviors at work from managers, don't get me wrong, but I've seen some really poor behaviors as well. And if you're in that situation, it really can make your life an absolute misery. But again, you've got choices. You are covered by legislation. Legally, you are not allowed to be treated like that, but you've got choices to make. And I would never tell anybody what to do, but when I'm coaching people who are in that situation, again, we take some time to go through, weighing up maybe the pros and cons of the job that they're in. Is it worth it? Do you want to stay and make some changes? Do you need to have a very straight conversation with your line managers? Say, we need to make some changes here. This is not working for me. And to have that conversation can be difficult. But if that's what needs to happen, that might be the thing. Alternatively, you might think, well, I'm going to make the decision to leave. I'm going to choose a different job, maybe go to a different organization. And that's a choice, again, that you've got to make, if you can, without the emotion and not from a place of fear, but making it from a place of, I know what's best for me. I know what my priorities are. I know what my values are. And I think more and more people that I speak to today realize sometimes that the values that they've got, what matters to them, honesty, integrity, whatever it is, connection, whatever those values are, if they're not the same as the values of the organization that they're in, or if they're not the same values as their line manager, that can make things pretty tough. So again, it's not all about cutting and running. It's about making an informed decision and deciding what you want to do next. But work, I don't want to just focus on the negative, because work is such a fulfilling part of many people's lives. I was talking to somebody the other day, and she was telling me that she loves the relationship she's got with her boss. She said it's great. We bounce off each other. We finish each other's sentences. We're really excited when we're working on the same project together, because we're a bit yin and yang. We know each other's strengths and weaknesses. And that can be such a fulfilling part of your life. And I don't want to say, when you have a cancer diagnosis, that work is worse afterwards, because it's not. But it may be different. And it may be different in a lot of good ways as well. So if you need any help with any of this, as always, I'm always here for you. Please get in touch if you want to talk to me about any of this. But please remember to stay safe and stay sane. And have a brilliant week. And I'll speak to you very, very soon. Thanks for listening, my love. Bye-bye.